From Los Angeles and Nashville, get ready to go behind the scenes with Entertainment Dudes. What happens when you pair a director, a voice actor in a world, and some of the most interesting people in entertainment? You're about to find out. Hello, welcome to Entertainment Dudes. This is too loud. I'm having to yell over the music right now. I don't know why it's still so loud.
Dramatic. It's for drama.
Right? Woo! Wow.
I can't hear. Hang on.
Oh my
Hang on
goodness. What happened there?
Today
I don't
is
understand
it's National Rocking Your Chair Side to Side when you're on the Entertainment Dudes podcast day.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is. You didn't get
Roy should have warned us about that at the last one. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on here.
We don't know what order that was going to happen in, but we'll see.
I don't know. It was before this one. But anyway.
Yes. Who's excited for today's show? I am.
Very excited for today.
I'm excited.
Do you like people whose work has been watched collectively over 1 billion times on YouTube?
I do, and I'm actually kind of envious of this fact. I think I'm only at 999,999, but...
Yep. And do you like people who have been in film and video production for over 20 years?
Yes, I do. I happen to know a couple of those people.
Yes. And who are you looking at?
You. I'm pointing at you.
Oh,
you're
me.
You're in the next frame.
Yeah, I've never done any film and video production.
Yeah, this beautiful frame. Did you just have a flyby, Emmy?
No.
Was that just a you just
Not
did
me.
I did.
Not.
Today's show is brought to you by Scandinavian Swimmers, not to be confused with Swedish Fish. This is sponsored by Trader Joe. Yes, not really.
Because Swedish Fish would not sponsor us. So
no. Sorry, continue. We have an amazing guest, and he's getting bored and waiting for the show to start.
In the green room. Well, are you going to introduce him?
Yes, I'd like to introduce you to Joel Robertson.
We got a guest.
Yes, we got a guest. Here he is, Joel Robertson, visual effects genius extraordinaire. He's been in this field. We're excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Yep.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes. So tell me a little briefly about your company. What is it you guys do? And you're down there in Nashville too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're down in Nashville, and I've been here about 15 years or so. And so I kind of came up in the music world, so that's kind of why I came to Nashville. And I play guitar in several different bands, and I ended up becoming kind of the content guy for all the bands that I played in.
Can you play something? I see your guitars back there.
They're back there. Yeah, I'll do some air guitar.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind of got into like motion graphics and visual effects kind of in a roundabout way, doing like music stuff. And, you know, every band needs content on the screen behind them. So that's kind of where I got started. And then bands that we were on tour with were like, hey, we'd like to have, you know, some of that content. And so I started getting busier and busier, and then it turned into music videos, and then it turned into commercials. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm making more money doing this, my side gig, than I am like playing music. So I make the switch.
That's fascinating. So there was no formal education, but it was more just like thrown into the deep end of the pool and said swim, and you figured it out. What'd you start on? What program was your first program you used? After Effects or?
Well, I initially started on 3D Studio Max, and I was just doing that.
Started on 3D Studio Max?
Most people say Microsoft Paint or something.
Yeah, I was like, they try Corel Draw.
3D Studio Max.
How far back do you want to go? I mean, because I was going on MS Paint for a long time. You know,
okay, so you were playing Minesweeper on one screen and MS Paint on the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3D Studio Max.
Like in high school, I was taking some, it was a class, because I kind of wanted to work for Pixar when I was younger. And, so I was in this program that basically offered college classes to high school students. So you got college credit.
Mm-hmm.
And so my teacher, he was great. He kind of knew what I wanted to get into. And he made me learn all these other programs before I got to where I wanted to be. And so he knew my incentive. You know, he was like, he wants to be here, but he should learn Photoshop, and then he should learn Premiere, and then he should learn, like, so I went through the books as fast as I could in that class because I wanted to get to the 3D Studio Max.
Yep.
And that's kind of where, so I went through all that, and I'm so glad that he did that and he had the foresight, because it's all connected, like, so knowing how to make texture maps inside Photoshop or whatever, and then using that in 3D Studio Max, it was a smooth transition. So after 3D Studio Max, I kind of got into After Effects because I knew that I needed to do a lot of compositing. And at the time I was like, After Effects is kind of like the main, like, where can I get the most bang for your buck kind of thing. So I was like, it can do motion graphics, it can do visual effects, without having to go to a program like Nuke or any other, like very high-end specific programs. I just kind of said, where is the most, like versatile kind of platform that I could be on to kind of make myself as, I guess, versatile or, an asset to some client who would need something. My goal wasn't to go into very, like, movies directly right away, because I knew that there were, commercials and music videos that didn't have, like a $8 million budget,
Yeah, the low hanging fruit stuff that you could get, dip your feet in, get the real. How important is the real, especially in visual effects? Like,
yeah,
because
that allowed me to go right into it, right into production. And so when I moved to Nashville, I started a company called Fourthcrown Studios, and we've been doing it ever since. Yeah.
Yes, I know for a fact how incredibly talented this gentleman is. Like, he's worked with me on a number of projects, and I mean, literally, it's kind of like the part in the story when people are watching the film and their jaw drops and they're like, how did you guys do that? I'm like, how did I do that? No, how did Joel do that? Because
I'm trying to figure out the Nashville production scene now, because Jason, you and I knew tons of the same people and had never met.
Yeah.
Forever. And now it's the same with Joel. So
yeah, I don't know if you haven't known him. No. Kim's right there.
Yeah,
so he's been doing it
30 miles away from you.
How long have you been doing it there, Kim? Like 25 years, maybe 20 years?
Longer. I grew up in the music industry here, so
yeah. His father worked at was it Records? Who your dad was?
He discovered Alan Jackson and produced Alan Jackson, Johnny Paycheck, Colin Ray, a bunch of stuff. So I grew up in music studios here. So
Cam has a picture with literally everyone. We played this game. We used to be like on Dave Ramsey's show. We worked together. I said, Cam, ask Cam if he has a picture with so and so. Okay, all right. Do you have a picture of Cam and Lee Greenwood? And he's like, he's like, fine. Do you have a picture with Dolly Parton? Both of you sipping mint juleps. He's like, and it's baby Cam, right? It's little Cam with all the Dukes of Hazzard. He's on the car. Like, do you have a picture with Dukes of Hazzard? Ding, Cam on top of the car with Dukes of Hazzard. So he actually recorded a song with who was it?
Sonny Schroyer, Enos. It was actually one of the first videos on a very brand new country music television.
Yeah. Oh wow!
Yeah, long time ago.
Enos, yeah.
You're well-seasoned veteran.
Yeah, and it's just crazy to be in the same town. Nashville's a pretty small scene, and the same thing. I've been working with with Revolution, with Taillight, with a lot of the guys, and a number of people. And Cam and I, we never met. I was there for 15 years doing it, and
everybody I knew Jason and had worked with Jason, and so like we never met.
Yeah, and then we finally did, and the rest is history.
Well, what happened was the internet, and with most of my stuff is just I'll send a link, and so I work with studios out in LA, San Francisco, New York, Florida. Like, I don't need to be, I guess, any specific place to get work anymore, and
which is amazing.
Yeah. And so that's another thing, most of my clients I've never met face to face. It's just been kind of word of mouth and then emails. And
And that's
Zoom
how
meetings,
it's gone.
you know?
Yeah, and it's how we're meeting the first time. It's literally the
Yeah.
first time I've seen what Joel looks like in 6 years working together. Yeah, you know, the pandemic is interesting how it changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that changed was just the locality. Where do you need to be? There was kind of already moving this day. Do I have to be at the office if I can do this stuff at XYZ place? And so it was sort of like a metamorphosis where everyone got pushed out of the door. And I think companies found out like, wow, we save a lot of overhead. We're not, you know, spending that much on toilet paper. And then you've got people that are getting set. So one of the guys I've been working with here, he left and moved to Maine and bought a cabin. He'd always wanted to live in Maine, so he and his family bought the cabin up there, and he still works with the company here. But he lives in Maine, and another one of his colleagues moved to Ireland, and that was the first thing that inspired him. He's like, I'm moving to Ireland. And he's like, well, if he can be in Ireland, why can't I be in Maine? So the company's like, and you could be, that's why I think Montana's going to blow up. Wyoming's going to blow up. Like all these places where you can kind of get away, have, have your own properties, massive spaces, but you can still work from anywhere. It's pretty exciting to see that shift is coming.
Yeah. I've been working with, not real recently, but there's a visual effect artist out in Japan that I've worked with. And that's kind of an interesting thing, you know, because I can work all day on the project and save it on, say, Dropbox, whatever. And then I can email him when I go to bed. Mm-hmm. And that's around the time that he's getting up. And so he can pick up that project and work his whole day. And then when I get up, you know, we're, 8 shots done, like we've got, all this stuff. And so you kind of, you kind of roll.
That's like what
the time difference.
I'm doing that with a video game right now in Japan. And we're emailing back and forth, and I'm sending voices over, and then they're working, and then it's ready for me again. So it's great.
Yeah. I've done a lot the same way out of Dubai, the same thing. I love people in Pakistan and Dubai who are doing it's a perfect time for when I get off and switch, and then in the morning it's done. It's like that ferry. You're like, I just wish someone would do this while I was sleeping. And then you've got mail.
So they do buy a lot of
they do buy,
right?
They do buy a lot.
A lot.
So that's pretty exciting. Well, speaking of changes that we're talking about in technology, and obviously with the advent of the video volume and what they've done over at Disney and actually, I think it really started with Favreau on Jungle Book. Like that's the first time he started using some of the LED screens and then using shadow projection and how changing the light. I think the trick was, how do you do it in this entire space and create realistic light, with shadows and with light.
The Unreal Engine environment. And then
the Unreal environment. I was wise. I watched the behind the scenes of how he was doing that, and I thought it was spectacular what he's doing. So when they moved to Mandalorian and the problems they had to solve with working on the video volume, it literally changed everything. In the earlier days, the camera was so big that you couldn't move it. There was no cake in the camera outside, so everything was done in the studio and it was built there. You have a controlled environment. You don't have to mess with sound. You can have the same lighting kind of all day long, but you don't have that epic gorgeousness that is just life. And then when cameras got small enough, they're like, we're taking this outside. So they go outside, and a lot of productions are done on location on set. But then you have the issues of traffic, weather, airplanes, nature. And so video volume.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful sunset. They saw each other inside and outside shooting as they came together. The perfect kiss. And Joel, you've started working on this. You've done a couple of projects on the video volume already. Tell us a little bit about what's the tech, what's it doing, what's it like to be in that space, and what does it change?
It's amazing because, just a couple of years ago, we were on this music video, and it was kind of like, okay, we have 30 minutes to get golden hour. And it's like, and they needed to do a green screen, and there was like this whole thing, and the camera was supposed to be spinning around. And with golden hour, like when you change the direction, like everything it was one of those things we just kind of had to roto the whole entire thing because
what's roto for those of our audience who are new to this?
So rotoscope is basically going in frame by frame and cutting out whatever you want to be, so green screen, you would, cut that person out using the, computer, like keying. And this would be just by hand, just cutting out frame by frame your character. and no one really enjoys that. I think I met like one person who said he enjoys that.
Good, then you do it.
Yeah. So I'll spend an entire 8 hours, working on something to try and figure out a way around rotoscoping. And it could have taken 3 hours to actually do it.
Yeah,
but I'll spend more time to try and figure out how to not do it.
That's the same. That's like editing for me. I try to do anything I can to avoid. How can I make this film without editing?
AI.
Yeah.
So when I heard about what Jon Favreau was doing with The Mandalorian, I was just like, this is incredible, because you can pull up, golden hour and shoot for 8 hours straight if you wanted. Like like you can move the sun around, and it's real time and it looks great. So I was kind of an advocate. So whenever this project came up, there's a guy named Randy Brewer. He owns Revolution Pictures in Nashville. And so he reps me on like certain jobs to direct, like if it's VFX work. And so this job came up and we needed to shoot roughly 9 locations, but there was not quite the budget to do that, So I said, well, it sounds to me like we need to look into the volume and see, how we can do this. And I already knew that that's where the future of filmmaking is. So I just said, let's go ahead and just dive into this, deep dive, and see what it would cost, to get in, do it, develop the environments and bring it in, shoot it, all that. So we went down to Tampa, and there's a company down there called Diamond View, and they have an actual volume. It's called View. And we met with them. We flew down and we saw the tech, and it's just mind blowing. I think when we walked in, they were playing the NHL Stanley Cups because Tampa was in the finals, and so they were playing the game
on the wall,
on the huge wall, and it felt like I was on the ice,
Oh, that's
so I
crazy.
was just I think it's 270 degrees around.
That's a huge one. Yeah, that's a huge
so I'll
route.
explain. A volume is basically just it's just a bunch of panels of LED screens that just come all the way around. It's a circular thing, has a ceiling that is also LEDs. So whenever you pull in a game engine like Unreal, and you pull in your location that you've made, it was so cool seeing the DP go, all right, can you give me a yellowish light right here? And they would just drag, like a yellow box just where it needed to be. And then all of a sudden you had yellow cast,
That's amazing.
It was like, wow, this kind of changes everything. And so we shot for 2 days and we got 9 locations.
Wow.
Yeah, well, you can't do that. And they can be completely, they could be you can be in Antarctica, and then you can be in the Sahara, and then you can be in New York City, and you can't tell. There's one of the things that we talk about. Some of my friends work on Mandalorian, and they're sometimes you have to put your hand out as you're walking towards the edge of the wall because you'll just face right into it because you can't tell. And I think the interesting part is what we talked about just briefly in before we got started is how it changes the workflow of production. Normally in production, you'll do, you'll have your pre-visualization where you'll work on what it's going to look like. You'll do some animation. Sometimes they'll even mock animate the entire film. For example, in what's Star-Lord, Guardians of the Galaxy, they did that whole film first before they even shot it. And then you, after you do that, you move into the production and you shoot against green screen, and understanding that all that green is going to be replaced by the VFX guys. What are they doing? Oh, we'll figure it out when we get there. I know you get brought in earlier as a visual effects supervisor, manager, just to kind of make sure those shots work. And then in the back end, that's when they do all the visual effects. Now, obviously, tell me a little bit about how that workflow has changed with the volume. What's that do for your guys' workflow?
Yeah, I think for me, the most noticeable change was we are more involved with the art department now. It's kind of like, okay, they're handling what is on the set physically, and that is what really helps sell the volume. So like if you can shoot with actual practical elements that the actors can interact with, and then we can match that same. So we did on that project, we had a church that I basically went in and shot a bunch of photogrammetry of this church and brought it in to Unreal. And so we knew exactly what the pews looked like. We knew exactly what the furniture was. And so we sent that to the art director, and he was able to make these pews look exactly like that. So we had the digital pews back there, and then we had our actor, and then we had the actual practical pews that he interacted with, and it was seamless. Like it's, like you wouldn't know that. And it's there.
Amazing, because I'm seeing even in the art departments, they're using the photogrammetry as well to make things like those practical props and the pews. I've been into a lot of 3D printing lately and have been looking at a lot of prop people, and they're actually going and taking 3D environments and pulling out elements and recreating them for props. That's cool. Using the same stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, going the opposite way. Yeah. So here's the pew. Here's the model of it. Go ahead and print it.
Yeah, exactly. And you're doing the same thing for the digital background. Wow.
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed, other than just like the speed of resetting the set. And so, normally on set you would have, you would get everything set, you'd shoot for however long you need to shoot, and then you would take, an hour or 2 hours to strike the set and reset for the next scene. Or even more, like you would have to, do a whole company move, and you're traveling to the next location, and then you have to set up. So this was like, between setups was about 30 minutes. So
amazing. Amazing. That's ridiculous. For anyone who hasn't done production, even on a small production. So let's say you're doing an interview, just a sit down interview. You got 3 people to interview in one location. It can take, setting up three different lights, setting up your camera, setting up your sound with 2 or 3 people. It could take an hour just to set up and get ready to move. The idea of doing an entire location move, a change with like your gaffers, your DPs, your riggers, your best boy, your entire crew, and just changing it in 30 minutes is just I mean, the logistics of this, because if you factor, sometimes you could be driving with 5, 10, 15 trucks, all the people that are going there, the parking they have to do, the restrooms they have to build, everything that has to be created on location. It's extremely expensive. And it is expensive to shoot on a video volume now because they're new and they cost a fortune to build. I think, for about 100-foot volume, it's around $3.5 million right now just to build the volume. Plus, you have to have your upstream and your downstream trained crew that you have to work with, the people that are loading the assets into the computer that's going to work with the camera. The camera's picking up all the different stuff, and then that's getting output. And sometimes you're going live with that. So is it going to go live straight away, or is that going to go to your post? You've got so many, but that's people you're paying for, but that's it. And once those things start paying themselves off, you're going to see the cost of shooting on a volume come down. It's going to, especially the more studios. So it's just going to make what you can accomplish in productions for smaller budgets. Just I think it's one of the most exciting times to be in this industry. It's just it's so incredible.
Yeah, and it won't it's another tool, so it won't completely make the way that we've been shooting for 100 years
change.
Obsolete.
Yeah, no.
But it's just it's another tool. So you'll still need to shoot some outdoor scenes with car chases and that sort of thing. Like, but then like, for dialogue or anything, like The Mandalorian, like even that is just like, he's on a different world. All right, well, let's just make this world and yeah. So it's really cool and seeing, like, because now when I think about directing something, I'm like, okay, can that be a volume thing? Mm-hmm. Or is this something that we have to go out into the field and actually shoot? And it's ever changing, so, car scenes, like dialogue in a car. Now you can shoot all of that in a volume, and you get all of that reflection on the windows, and you get all that, just realistic movement.
Yeah. All right. So let's say for someone who's watching this, who's considering this career path, who's interested in this kind of thing, what do you see on the horizon as cool opportunities? Like, I know we're talking about creating digital assets, even for AR, for VR, for these new world experiences, the blend between video games and film. What kind of cool things are on the horizon for this industry? Do you see it slowing down, picking up? What's happening?
Well, I think it's picking up. I think, I look at it like this, like the volume is like the newest and coolest iPhone, but you're going to need apps on that, to really like sell it. So I think, companies who want to innovate and push the limits of what you can do in a volume, that's going to be, I think, where the future is. It's like, some of these really smart people out there, like pushing the limits of, okay, well, can we do this? I don't know. I think you were talking about, like hologram technology and just, I don't know, but I know that the apps on the phone is really what you interact with on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's kind of going to be the future of shooting in volumes is I'm excited to see where that develops.
Yeah. A lot of times you're working in post-production and you're working in visual effects a lot and you're creating assets and things. How do you take something that is organic and real, like working with the actors on set, and then what is the trick to blending those together so well? Do you go for realism? Do you go for punch? Like when you're working on your VFX, I think all the tools should serve the action. That's just, as a director, I think the most important part is the story. How do you keep that in mind when you're creating stuff? Because you can make something really cool, but like really show off. But how do you? Where's that line for you, and how do you approach that when trying to make that real?
I think for me, it's being a child of the '80s. There's something to whatever you get in camera, and mixing that with the VFX. And I watch some of these movies and the camera's doing things and it's defying physics and it takes me out.
Yeah, same.
And even though it's cool, for whatever reason, it doesn't feel real. It kind of takes you into that uncanny valley. Like it just feels like CG. And so I'm probably one of the few, like visual effects guys that's like, get as much as you can in camera because that's going to serve the story. Like I look at it like I do my job. No one knows that I worked on it. Like I kind of want to be behind the scenes and, like
NF Clouds that you worked on.
Yeah.
That music video was amazing. This gentleman was involved in that process. He won't tell you this.
Yeah, I've done a couple of his music videos, and to me, one of the coolest things and most rewarding things is seeing like fan reaction videos to some of your work.
Yes.
And I get it. They're not a fan of mine. They're a fan of the artist. But seeing all the, like them enjoying what you have kind of spent 3 or 4 weeks, like day and night on it's really rewarding. So
yeah,
that's one of my favorite things.
It's incredible. I've noticed this with the advent of YouTube, and we worked on a Star Wars film together, and seeing the reactions was my favorite part of the whole process. Like people crying when they're watching.
They were crying.
Crying. They're like, I didn't expect to be crying. Like it's just, and up until I think the first time I ever saw someone watch my stuff and I could see them react to it, was I worked on a thing for Clay Walker. He had done a lot of work for the disease that he has and that he was sharing, and it was for they gave him a huge celebration about what he had done. Hi, Kitty. And I there was a camera filming his reaction watching it, and he just starts crying. And I think it was the first time that I really felt like that's what I was looking for. Why I create what I create.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being able to connect what I'm doing with the audience, and then having them feel something visceral and movement. And to see that, it was just like, it gave me energy. I think I'm doing this for a reason. Because sometimes, you're doing stuff, you're like, what is I've done so many projects. I'm like, I need a paycheck, right? Right now, it's just like, and I didn't get into it to just get a paycheck. I don't think you really go into this field if you're like, I want to make money, because there's a large number of years where you're probably not, as you're building up to it. And so it's
any
like,
entertainment job. Yeah.
Any entertainment job. You struggle for a while, and even in the midst, like, you get that up and down. But when you see, like you said, those moments where the fans are reacting to it, and it just gives you a sense like, I'll do it all over again. I would go back and I would start from the beginning, do it just for those moments. It's priceless.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about like the Star Wars thing that we worked on. You can tell it's a passion project for everyone involved.
Yeah,
and I always talk about this, the work slider, where you can work on something that may have a really big budget, but it's very dull, and it's like there's no creativity, and they tell you exactly what they want, and it's it pays really well, and then you get a little bit further into something that's a little more creative, and you may have a little more input into the creation process, but the budget goes down. And then
why can't it be the other way? Darn it.
Right, yeah. And then you get into the inverse of that, which is passion projects, where it actually costs you money, but you have all the control, and it's like your passion to do that. And that's kind of, hopefully you can get that balance where you can do enough here to kind of pay for some of that passion that and keep that balance.
That's exactly what we're doing. Yeah. Like Ray and I work on the Star Wars things that we're creating, and everybody is just mostly giving time. Like, we're shooting this project, this, you get people excited about it. Yeah, I want to do this. And I mean, predominantly everything is just shoe strap, whatever we've got. She's selling pins that she creates. She's doing different stuff and taking money that we have. This should pay this, but you're like, yeah, but we need a different lens. So we need a better lens. Yeah. Like, how are you going to pay for that? Like, I won't worry about that later. We're doing this now. So I think the best place to learn too is passion projects and music videos. Because in music videos, there's not necessarily a narrative that has to be told exact. Country music is somewhat different because there's a lot of narrative involved. But if you're going for different types of, especially indie, if you're going for rock, if you're going for, you can do all kinds of stuff. That's when I love to mess with the lights, try something different, try crazy camera stuff. And even if, and the attention is on purpose on the visuals, what you're doing with it. It's also using the visuals to entertain. And like you said, with narratives, you try to hide the fact that you're even there, and it serves the story. But in music video, it's like, look at us, like look what we can do. It's still, look at this artist,
flashing.
Yeah. And I think that's the same thing with passion projects. Like you can, it's okay. Like, well, I want to try this. I want to do it. Like, well, people don't do that. It's not who cares? It's my film.
It's like the sandbox. Like, you can kind of develop an idea with that maybe you could take on to a future project, and like, I know we just did a music video for Eric Church, and what the director wanted to take 20 years of music videos that he had done over the years and basically change his face to say the words to the new song. And so that was
a great idea. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's great.
Was that through Revolution?
No, that was my buddy Reed Long. He's a director in Nashville here, and
a great idea.
It's a killer idea, and like, I've seen all the fans react to that, and like, you get a whole myriad of fans who were there from the beginning and they remember that first music video all the way through, you know, like, so people are picking up on
that stuff. So can you talk about, did you deep fake? Can you talk about that a little bit, or is that something you can't talk about?
So I looked into deep fakes and trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way to do this? And the more and more I looked into deep fakes, you have to have a performance to map the other face onto. And this was kind of backwards. Like we had the performance, but it wasn't the right lyrics or it wasn't the right words. And so we had to, I don't think the deep fake would have worked doing that. So we had to come in and we shot Eric. We told him to be as still as possible so his head isn't moving a ton. And we had him sing the song all the way through. And we went in and tracked, a couple hundred points on his face.
Oh, wow.
And used his performance as a driver to drive the image from the older music video.
So it's like a reverse deep fake almost.
Yeah.
Because with deep fakes, they scan tons and tons of videos. The more information, the more videos you have of an individual, the more assets you're loading into the AI to do the deep fake. So the more videos they have, the better the deep fake. And if you have something like that where he's not on, how many videos can you get, how many pieces. So instead you went almost the opposite way, created the material for the AI and then said, put this on these videos. Yeah. That's clever.
So it was an interesting, the first test that I did was like, okay, it's promising, but it's far from perfect. And so the longer that we did it, we got better at it and quicker. And, I love that sort of stuff where you can kind of pioneer a technique and it works. And that's like a very, that's so cool. I was able to figure it out.
That's actually really incredible. I think that's going to go a long way with stuff, especially they use the deep fake. They didn't deep fake, Luke in the last season, The Mandalorian. And there's some kids that did it. Not kids, they're in their 20s. They're younger guys. They have a team.
Did you see that? Digital guys?
Yeah. Yes, wasn't that crazy? And they deep faked it, and it looked even better. And then they got hired. They got hired now to do that. So it's really interesting. Yeah, they're gonna work on. I think they're working on the next series. Awesome. Yeah, amazing. And I think they just saw that and said, get them, because otherwise they're gonna keep doing it for someone else. So let's use them over here. So I think that's an incredible idea, and create what you've done is the opposite direction. So imagine if you're taking the material for a deep fake that you had before, combine it with those live things, then you combine those two with the tech that you have, a little, the tweaking. What can you do? Partially the idea of deep fake is somewhat terrifying because it's already hard to know what you can believe and what you see. And the more realistic it gets, the cooler it is, because we're like, cool, we can tell cool stories. But then it's also like, we can tell cool stories. When you go over, but I guess everything leaves some sort of digital artifacts. And at least right now we could still track it and see where it was, but who knows, maybe it gets to the point where it's like you can't trust anything you see or hear.
Even Photoshop early on had that worry, when they were talking about National Geographic, okay, what's going to be real and what's going to be adjusted. So every new technology has that. Yeah.
Well, and I think even stuff that you look at today's book covers or even thumbnails to YouTube channels, everything has gone through Photoshop at some point. I'm sure people get rid of their flaws that they're worried about, and then because everyone, it's such a TikTok world where everyone those filters that you put on, and it's funny because I've had several clients that go, I want this TikTok or this Instagram filter, I want it to look like that in visual effects or beauty work or whatever. And so I'm having to figure out, okay, how did they do that? And then how do we put it on a video?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's interesting to see too how TikToks, YouTubes are impacting the way that even we are telling stories and things. And One thing I noticed, and maybe I'm just sort of a reversist in this way. I've noticed like my ability to focus has gotten less and less and less, and I've noticed this over time. And I think it's that constant process of just quickly updating, you know. And so I've literally deleted everything. Like I don't even have my Facebook. I don't have anything anymore. And I usually delete Instagram off of my phone until like I'm on the weekend or whatever, and I feel like, hey, I want to chill. I'll load it back on and I'll look at it. Otherwise, I don't even have it anymore. And I think it's just. Yeah, I think it's just because of that. Like, I realized it was really cool, and then I realized it's damaging to a certain point, and I'm like, I actually want to go back. And even how I'm starting to direct more, I've got a lot longer shots. I'm just starting to just let the camera play on the scene. If the emotion is there, it's that kind of, you know, that pendulum that swings like this, and I think you get a good balance. And it's like you said, it's a tool. I taught film school at the New York Film Academy, and every single student film in the history of the world has the Hitchcock shot, you know, where you zoom in as you're dialing back, and it's like, brrr, and it doesn't matter if it's necessary or not. It's like, I always like to say, what motivates this? Why are you doing this? Because it's cool. Like,
it's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I get it. We're okay. Have fun, dude. But I think everything should be, in order to blend well in a story, it needs to be properly motivated. Why is it happening? Same thing I saw when drones started coming out. Everyone, drone shot. I'm like, I don't. So why is this a drone shot? You know, because it's but it doesn't. It's a story. If you look at a story, you're like, you're close. You're medium. Why are we doing this drone shot now? Because it's cool. Like, okay. So I think the same thing you said. It's like a tool, having fun with the tool, figured it out, and then using it to, like, even the idea of a dolly move originally was impossible. The cameras were too big. So then once that started, dolly, but then it gets blended, it gets used, and you figure out, okay, this is what it does. This is the feeling it creates. This is the mood it creates. And I don't know. I almost like the more simple now, the more organic.
It's a double-edged sword, though, because you can use the new tools to innovate and create amazing things, but also when you are limited in what you can work with, that forces real creativity, and you have to be creative with what you've got. And I love going back and watching old shows and old media and how they did things before all these new tools that we have today, as well as the pacing. It helps you, like you said, TikTok and fast. And you look at these old shows and the pacing is just so much slower, and it's almost like a breather and a relaxer to watch old media.
Yeah. It's the same thing. Like when we used to learn to edit, we had to do it. You know, you're cutting. It's like on the Steinbeck, and it's flat, and you're cutting. And if you cut it, you're like, shoot, where's that last piece? You're a lot more careful with the choices that you make. So you're literally, why are we cutting this here? Do we have to have this cut? Is it absolutely necessary? You know, you're taking more time to realize the impact of each choice that you make. But when NLEs came out and you started editing on Final Cut or Premiere early on, it just was like slap. It changed the way that you did it. But now I've come back to the point after that moment saying, you know, do I need this? Should I cut it here? 2 frames here, 2 frames there. Well, you know, why? How does it change the feeling of the piece? Watch it again. Yeah, yes, we need to do that. Let's trim here. So, it's interesting. I think there's the limitations of trying to figure out how to do things. The last Star Wars film that I did, I did I DP'd it, directed it. I did the makeup, the spray, you know, we sprayed her everything was me. I had one day I had a guy who helped me AD because I had like 20 stormtroopers and stuff, and I couldn't be shouting all the time. And the other day I had a girl hold a flashlight and she got a gaffer credit. I was like, hey, we'll throw it in there. But you try to figure it out. Like, how do we want to do this? So we work together, and I'm happy with the results. And I often love those experimental processes and trying to make it sometimes even more than when I get a big budget to do something. It's really exciting. But
Joel, what's your favorite tool or genre or project type to work on? With?
That's hard to say because it's one of the, like, my brain is wired in a certain way where I love a challenge. And so usually if something hasn't been done, or if I don't know how it's been done, or if I've seen, if somebody says, how would you do this? You know, like I like learning how to do that and then figuring that out. And then, so, I mean, I guess music videos would be that, just in regardless the genre, is it's so, like, I guess the production in music video is so quick that, I'm never on anything for more than 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
And then I'm on to the next project, because that keeps my brain thinking about, like, okay, how do I, because I think I would get bored if I was just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, like innovating. That's the same. It's an innovator. That's the same.
Yeah, and what's cool is you work with different directors, and they all have different ideas and their creativity, and then you get to kind of collaborate with them and kind of iterate on their cool idea. And so, and I think that's what I like, is just working with talented people who have really cool ideas and trying to help them realize their ideas.
Now you're moving into directing more though, not right? It seems like you've got some more of that happening. Are you excited about that transition? I think
I am. And I never, like, it was never an end goal of mine to become a director, but I think I saw more of a need for it the more I got into visual effects and seeing, like, well, I could handle that. Like, I could do a visual effect heavy spot. And that just kind of, I guess, it's one of those things, like, when you're on set, you're like director and VFX supervisor, and you can kind of, I guess you can go, yeah, I can work with that, like, and I know, rather than shooting it a million different ways and being like, I hope that's what the VFX guy can use or whatever, I could just say, yeah, that's exactly that's good. What we can go ahead and move on. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the same. I think every director should probably learn how to be a good editor, and B, understand visual effects, especially now as we move forward. The more we go forward, I think that's, I ended up getting so many editing gigs when I first started. I'm like a director. They're like that. I'm a director. They're like, oh, that's nice. Can you edit? I was like, well, I can't. Good, edit this. I was like, do you need to see my reel? Or no, we need it by Tuesday. So I started editing. I'm like, oh, editing. But I got to the point where I'm on set, I just know, like, people are like, no, we need to get this shot. I'm like, I don't need it. I already know that. I'll cut here. I'm going to come over here, this shot here, and I'll use that last one from that last take. I've already got it. So it's the same. You see it because you can visualize that in process. That's an asset. This is an asset. That's my background, foreground. I need this piece to complete that puzzle.
Yep.
Done. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Where can people catch you online, see your work, and if they want to contact you and maybe work with you, where do they do that?
Yeah, well, our website is fourthcrown.com. It's spelled FOURTHCROWN.com. And we have a Vimeo, which is just vimeo.com/fourthcrown, same thing. Our Instagram is at fourthcrown. And so awesome. Feel free to check out some of the work, and I'd love to work with everybody, and that's I think that's what I enjoy about it, is just being, like I said, meeting creative people and working with them and collaborating.
Awesome.
Definitely
it might
awesome.
be great if you'd ever let us have you on again. I think it'd be fun to go over the body of work and look at some of the things, like maybe some of the funnest stuff you got to figure out, like problems you got to solve that might have gone unnoticed, like you said, that no one saw it, and like, hey, this is what we did here. So
yeah, I was talking to my buddy Cody. He's helped me. He actually did most of the backgrounds on the volume that we did on that shoot in Tampa. And I was showing him stuff because I'm like, you're probably the only person that would, appreciate
what happened.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're crazy good at what you do. And for anyone who's considering working with Fourthcrown, I mean, they work incredibly fast. They're so patient with you when you're trying to do the process. I know Joel many times as I've been asking, hey, this is what I want to try to accomplish. I want to do this, and he's been really good at saying, hey, I could do it if you'll get me this asset, this piece, and I mean, I even had a lady want to do a music video, and she said, I want to shoot it in Los Angeles. Okay, she's like, but I want to be in a jungle, and I want it to rain. And I'm like, you do know where now Los Angeles is, right? And so I wrote Joel, I'm shooting in Griffith Park. Here it is. It's just green, brown dirt, a couple of trees. I'm like, this needs to be a jungle. And he's like, okay, we can do it. So, got a chance to turn that into a jungle for her, which was, I thought spectacular. But yes, definitely check him out. Fourthcrown Studios, just fantastic. Awesome to work with. And it was wonderful having you on the show today. And look forward to really examining your body of work and looking at some of those fun shots and how you did them, because I think that would be great. So looking forward to it.
Thanks for having me, and I had a lot of fun. Hopefully you'll have me on again. We'll talk more.
Absolutely. Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Joel Robertson, fellow Nashvilleian and graphics person extraordinaire. Stay tuned to Entertainment Dudes. We'll have some more great entertainment fun for you next week, anywhere that you can get podcasts or video or, YouTube, Apple, any of that stuff. Right, Jason?
Yes, I spend most of my time on YouTube, though. I have not deleted YouTube, so maybe that's my like junk. I'm like, get it.
That's right. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been Entertainment Dudes. We'll see you next week.